Hey, welcome back to episode 3 of our Dad Vice podcast we got going on. I'm Derek Mata.
I'm Andrew Goody, and we are proud of you. This is, as Derek said, a Dad Vice podcast outlining the ups and downs of parenting. And when I say that, I mean Derek and I talking about things that have worked for us, things that haven't worked for us, and addressing some viewer questions, comments, concerns, input, anything that you guys want to tell us. Nothing on this podcast should be taken as professional advice. We're going to be talking about nutrition a little bit today. Neither of us are medical professionals. None of our advice is medical advice. We are purely dads trying to survive in a complicated world.
Dad's trying to make our kids survive in a complicated world. This is
Very,
nutrition.
very true.
Yeah, so I mean, nutrition is a big thing. I know when they're young and they're formula fed, like it's easy. Cleaning bottles is not easy. You haven't had to do that, have you?
No, so my luckily, our situation. My daughter is 18 months old. She's been breastfed the entire time. My wife is a trooper and is still breastfeeding her. We're weaning a little bit, and she's kind of self-weaning onto solids a little bit, but she's still probably gets at least 50 or 60% of her nutrition from breast milk. So for better or for worse, she never took a bottle. So even Emily tried pumping and that kind of stuff. Alana just would not take a bottle. We thought for a while maybe she had a tongue tie or some kind of oral problem that she wouldn't do it, but whatever the case, she drinks from like open top cups and she'll use a straw, but never took a bottle. So I never really got to feed her or get to feed her.
Yeah.
If from that nutritional standpoint, now that she's starting solids, I get to be a bigger part of that. But yeah, it's all mom all the time.
Yeah, see, like it's funny because all of my kids were completely opposite. Like they didn't care for breastfeeding. They like it was a bottle, and you're like, yes, like, and my wife's gonna listen to this and be like, I fed the baby the most. Like, yes, yes, you did, honey.
Yeah,
But
I think as an overall disclaimer for this show, Derek's wife and my wife do more work than Derek and I do raising our children. Full stop.
yes, I will never deny that. But feeding the child, holding your baby, and I wish my camera was like more zoomed in, like holding your baby, feeding them while they look at you and you're looking at them. Like there's something about that moment, it's just magical. Um, and I admit, like, there's a couple times like I let my wife do it, and they grow out of it. It's upsetting, but then you get to the weaning part, like the solids. Let me tell you, I have had 4 kids of my own, and it's never easy when you transition them to those. Like you sit there and you watch them. Like I don't care about my food. Are you gonna choke? Are you gonna be okay? Like
Yeah.
I still,
It's a
my daughter is almost 2 years old, and I still do it.
Well, and then it's a whole other thing too, right? Because like now, my daughter has proven that she's not going to choke, right? She is very competently, and I mean, I should knock on wood as I say this, but she's very competently spit out everything that she's ever like even partially choked on, and so I'm less worried about that. But now she spits out a lot of food, and I'm like, no, eat it. You need that. You need those black beans to live. You can put that nutrition in your body, girl. Stop spitting it out, like you know.
And it's funny though, because okay, so I think it's just that age, and so I'm gonna read down on here real quick. What Because both of my youngest two, when they were about 18 months, would eat anything under the sun. They loved beans. I can't say cottage cheese. Every kid loves spaghetti, all that stuff. And then as they got older, you'd hit those couple of days where they're just not eating anything. As a parent, it's very worrisome. Like, is my baby okay? Do I need to go to the doctor? So my wife, because she does more work than I do raising these children, taking them to their doctor's appointments, has asked the nutritionist or the pediatrician, hey, what's going on? And this is advice from a pediatrician. Obviously, talk to yours. Do not take this as as
This is
word
this
as it
is still
is.
not medical advice. This is advice that was given to us that we are regurgitating.
Exactly. So it says toddlers do not have the ability or mental capacity to starve themselves. They rely on instinct when it comes to hunger. So if your child is only eating one chicken, let's say one chicken nugget and a handful of goldfish, that might be enough for them and they might not be hungry. And that's okay. This is only a problem if it is long lasting and it affects their weight or makes them lethargic. Then you should seek medical help. Forcing toddlers to eat when they're not hungry only creates a negative relationship with food and puts strain on their relationship with you, which
Yeah, and
great advice.
that's great advice, man. Because I mean, think about it. I'm a full grown man, and there are days where I wake up and I skip breakfast and I'll have a light lunch and then I'll eat like a sandwich and go to bed. And there are days where I wake up and I have a full English breakfast and I have a cheeseburger for lunch and then I slam a 3-course meal for dinner. And I'm healthy both of those days, but some days I'm hungrier and some days I'm not. Why do we expect our kids to eat 8 ounces of mac and cheese and 5 chicken nuggets 3 meals a day every day? There's no way. It doesn't work that way. The human body, again, it goes back to what I swear I'm going to say it in every episode. Just following your intuition and knowing, hey, I'm full, so I'm not going to eat, or I'm hungry, so I want to eat more. And understanding that your kids have that same intuition too.
And the one issue, like, because it is all children, excuse me, is because my kids do it too. You open the pantry and what do? They run over there and snack, 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 snack. And they want to snack throughout the day. So when it's mealtime, you're sitting down with your actual proteins, carbs, whatever you're eating. They're like, all right, time to eat. And they're like, no, like, I'm not hungry anymore because they snacked the entire day. Um, and it's okay to a point, obviously. Like, you do have to monitor how your children are eating and making sure that they're getting the proper nutrients and not eating Takis or hot Cheetos or any of that processed crap. Like that's my personal opinion. I don't like
Yeah.
eating. I do eat those, but we don't really keep those in our household.
Yeah, and obviously the situation is different. I have a lot less experience with this than Derek does because I have one 18-month-old. Derek, as you mentioned, has 4 kids of his own plus a step. A lot more experience across a wider age range. How do you feel about the difference between encouraging your kids to listen to their bodies and know when they need more protein, or teaching them to understand, like, for an example, one of the things that I'm teaching my daughter as she is starting to eat more solid food, she loves chocolate, right? Because she's a child. Um, but teaching her to understand that if she eats chocolate without eating some protein and some carbs first, it doesn't feel good, right? Like when you eat a bunch of sugar on an empty stomach, it doesn't feel good for you. So it might taste good, but then your body feels like crap. So how do you feel about that? Teaching your kids to self-moderate versus cutting out snacks and only giving them the food that you're preparing.
See, so what we do is when we give them snacks, it's always a small amount. Like a snack is just that. It is a snack. It is not a meal of snacks. It is just like a snack. So if they see, let's say, M&Ms on the counter, like we give them 2, 3 M&Ms, and like, okay, now you're done because you still have to eat later. Because we know, like, while they don't understand, they eventually will understand, because in their mind they're like, I liked those M&Ms, I want more. And so it's like, okay, eat a few bites of, and this is going to sound wrong, and correct me. I feel like you're going to know where I'm trying to go with this. Almost like a reward, like how we do ourselves, like, hey, if I'm going to eat my meal and then I'm going to have dessert. Kind of teaching them the same way. Hey, if you eat a decent amount of your food, like we do the thing where we don't make our children finish their plate. If they take a bite and say, I'm full, we say, okay, well, if you get hungry later, this is what you're going to eat. But we also let them know that, hey, if you eat a good amount, then you can have some more M&Ms. And I know people are going to be like, how dare you bribe your children with sugary snacks? But like,
man, it's so interesting and it's so complicated, right? Because everybody has their own different opinions, and food is such a polarizing topic, right?
mm-hmm.
Because as long as people have been eating food beyond subsistence, right? Like once you get past, I have enough food to survive and I can choose what and when I'm eating. Uh, as long as that culture has existed, fad diets and food issues and eating disorders and body dysmorphia have been a problem, because everybody has different views of food and what's good and what's bad. And there are people who will tell you that you shouldn't eat any carbs, and there are people who tell you that you should eat a ton of carbs. There are people who tell you that vegetables are the best thing in the world for you. There are people who tell you that they're just carbs is all
Yeah.
vegetables are. Like, what? So it's really challenging. And one of the things that I'm kind of personally struggling with is I definitely see the benefit of that, right? Because I grew up in a how can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat household, right?
I use that reference all the time.
Like uh if you don't finish your dinner, you're not going to have dessert. Whereas my wife has what I'm slowly adopting as a much more intelligent and emotionally intelligent opinion than mine, which is that makes dessert uh special, right?
Mhm.
And because it's special, it becomes something that we indulge in, and it can become a vice or something that we overindulge in. Whereas if a chocolate chip cookie and a steak are the same in your mind, they're just food, and the order that you eat them in doesn't matter. Like if you eat dessert first and then you have your steak, sure, that's cool. As long as you have decent portions of both, it kind of takes away that specialness of sugar and of treats. And it's not to say that it's not special, because I think there's something magical about dessert, right? Um, but you don't want it to be that thing where every time you open up the cabinet, they're like, ooh, chips, candy, snacks.
Mhm.
Um, and instead it's, hey, I'm feeling a little bit hungry. I think I'm going to have like some lunch meat as a snack, because that is the same in my brain. It's just as special as an Oreo or whatever.
Yeah. So like what we do is that we have a very shallow pantry. Is what the kids can see is, like Life cereal, Cheerios, granola bars, things that are healthy. But we buy the veggie straws, and while they may not be that much better than chips, like it's not greasy Lay's potato chips. So like
Yeah,
when they
my
want a
daughter lives
snack,
on
like
veggie straws, so no shame, man.
there we go. So like when they want a snack, we don't feel bad for giving them a snack. And I know not everybody can go buy veggie straws and granola bars and all that, but like we don't make it like, hey, this bag of M&Ms is only $1 because it was clearance or whatever. I don't know. I don't buy M&Ms, so like forgive me for my ignorance here. Like we don't go buy the M&Ms and put them there because of course, like as a child, what do you, like you said, what do you want? You want that sugar, you want that sweetness. So it's a treat every so often. And it is hard because kids are stubborn. Once I hit that toddler, 2, 3 years old, like I'm not listening to you. Like this is what I want. Like I'm gonna throw my dinner on the floor, and you're gonna give me some damn M&Ms. Obviously, they're not saying damn, but like that's what I
Maybe yours
want. And
aren't.
you're, yeah, we won't go there. But it's teaching them that boundary. Like, hey, if you eat enough dinner, as and it's still, and it's even saying it out loud sounds silly because who's to say what's enough for the children, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
and because we give our kids decent portions, and like my daughter, she's got the 3 section plate with the big section and 2 smaller sections. So like obviously the main course, but we don't pile it high, and
Yeah.
then little bits of something in the smaller two. And as long as she eats a quarter of it, then we're like, oops, I'm hitting my mic over here. We're okay with that. Our youngest son, same kind of thing. Like we just kind of look at his plate and see what is he eating. Okay, so if you're not going to eat your mashed potatoes, we're not going to force you to eat your mashed potatoes. But if you're eating your hot dogs, like have more hot dog rather than forcing you the mashed potatoes, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and you can't. I mean, it's not a winning formula. There are some days that hot dogs are just the most disgusting thing in the world.
Well, and kids go through phases, right? I mean, I remember going through phases when I was a kid where like hot dogs were the only thing I would eat. I was like sold on hot dogs. And then the next week I didn't want anything to do with hot dogs because I'd had 10 of them the week before that. And so I was all about grilled cheese, and that was the only thing I'd eat. And I'm already seeing that with my daughter where like she, again, we're in the early stages of food transitions, and so like she eats a little bit of whatever we're eating really.
Mhm.
But avocado is her favorite thing right now, right? And by right now I mean like
Gross.
this week. Last week she hated avocado. Last week she was a black bean girl. All she wanted to eat was black beans. This week it's avocados. Next week, who knows? It'll be, and she goes through phases. The one consistent thing is that my baby loves mustard, which makes me a proud papa because, oh,
Like,
dude, by the spoon, literally just, yeah. Oh yeah.
I love me some classic yellow, but like not that much.
Yeah, man. It's wild. She eats it like, how you see videos of babies on like TikTok and stuff eating like ketchup and just like squeezing the bottle into their mouth. That's
I,
her
I
with,
I
I
don't
know you're
watch
not on
TikTok, so
social
like,
media,
yeah.
but
I'll
but
take your
that's
word for it. You've
that's
seen it, so I
her
trust
that's
you.
her with mustard, man. She'll literally like spoonfuls at a time just ham it down. Which
That's
makes me a proud papa as a half German man. I'm like, yes, you understand the good food.
is it classic yellow, or is it some fancy ass mustard?
No, I mean it's yellow mustard. We have
Okay.
we have like, again, I am part German, so I do have some like stone ground and brown mustards and stuff in the house, but the baby is just all about that yellow mustard.
I wouldn't be upset if my kids did that. Like, I'm a mustard guy.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I said, it's not easy. Like, and you were talking about one week they're into something and the next week they're not. Like, our kids will go between quesadillas and grilled cheese and chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, and like, because kids are so picky. And sometimes it's turkey and cheese rolled up and cut up as like little pinwheels, but you never know, because you're like, okay, cool, this week they love deli turkey and sliced cheese, I'm gonna buy a bunch of it, and they're like, no. So then you just wasted 10, 20. I don't know, I don't do the grocery shopping. um
Oh
10
man,
plus dollars.
your wife lets you off the hook. No food goes to waste in this house. The garbage disposal gets all of that lunch meat the next week. If the kids aren't into it, that's what I'm
Have you
for.
seen me? Like, you would think I don't even eat.
Yeah. I
um
Yes, I've seen your emaciated body, and I've also seen you house a whole pizza by yourself. So calm down, Mr. High Metabolism.
no, so it's I know, like, you get frustrated and like, you just liked this, like, I just all this cheese, all this meat, all this, chicken nuggets are frozen, kind of thing, like, and you get frustrated, but like, listen to your children. They will tell you what they want. If you have to, and we won't make the kids a special meal. I know some people are for that. We don't do that. Like,
So do you make your kids like, do because for me, like, if Emily and I are having spaghetti and meatballs for dinner, Alana is having spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. If we're having tacos, burritos, pad thai, whatever we're cooking, we usually just take a portion of that and don't add hot sauce to it, and then that's Alana's portion, right? Do you make, because I know a lot of people like, if my wife and I are having, steak and asparagus for dinner, my kids are still eating mac and cheese and chicken nuggets or whatever. Like, there's a kids menu, if you will. Do you is that your style, or are you kind of more on the line that Emily and I follow of just the kids eat whatever's on the table,
no,
whatever
it's
we're eating?
we do the whatever we're eating. There are occasions, like, let's say I want some ramen. I'm in the mood for some ramen, some good high quality ramen. The kids aren't going to eat ramen, so
Yeah.
then that's when we'll make them the quesadilla, the mac and cheese, and they'll have their own thing. But we plan our menu, but, well, not only what is cheap, but like what we know the children will eat,
Yeah,
because in the end it saves us money too. Like,
of course.
making two entirely different meals just doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint, especially because we have three kids in our household the majority of the time.
Yeah.
um so yeah, kind of same thing. Like, you don't have to eat what's in front of you, but I'm not making you something else. I'm not made of money. You would
Yeah.
think so with some of the things I own, but like, I just make poor
No, you're
financial
just bad with
decisions.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I think that works well because it also like opens up their like they're not just like, I just want mac and cheese my entire life. Like it opens up like their experience with food.
Yeah,
My sister growing up was about ramen, that cheap, was it Top Ramen, Maruchan Ramen, whatever, that
yeah.
25-cent pack of ramen is, like that was her go-to meal. And she would not eat anything else. I could probably guarantee you that, how old am I? I think my sister's like 31 now. And I bet you she still eats like she's a damn, what, I don't know. What's between toddler and preteen? Normal child?
Yeah, she's a child. Is that what
Yeah, that,
you're?
uh,
Hold on. Are you going on record and saying your sister is a child? I would just like to.
no, because you got infants, toddlers,
Yeah, no, I got
they're
you.
all children, and then you have preteens, teens, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
What are they called?
children.
They're all children.
Yeah, but like, uh,
But you get my point. But it opens them up and it lets them know that there's more food out there. Like the world isn't just cheese based. Even though it'd be
yeah.
awesome, it's not just cheese based.
Well,
Um,
and that brings up a whole other topic because my daughter is lactose intolerant, and so
oh,
she is not cheese based, and as such, because my wife is breastfeeding, we are a well, I say we, the two of them are a non-dairy household. I still eat my fair share of cheese because what's the point in living if you can't eat cheddar?
right.
Um,
That's right.
but yeah, and that, I mean, that opens up a whole another level of complication, right? Like I've had to learn how to cook because I do most of the cooking in our household, and I've had to learn how to cook a lot of things dairy free. And as as an American man, cheese is a staple for me. So
Yeah,
and there are alternatives. I mean, there are plant-based cheeses, but most of
it's
the
just
cheese,
not the same.
yeah. And man, you try to grate and melt a soy-based cheese into like an Alfredo sauce, and it just does not work. It's like grating plastic. There's no, I mean, it tastes fine, but it doesn't melt, which creates its own
Yeah.
issues. But
If you crumble it like feta, then you're good, right?
no,
Like
man. I
a
mean, it's when you're in town next, I'll show you some of the cheese that some of the shez that we have. And it's not most of the I've actually found that for non cow dairy based cheese, the best alternative, if you don't like goat cheese, which a lot of people don't because it's more pungent,
Mhm.
um, it is a lot of the vegan cheeses that are made with like potatoes, oil, and nutritional yeast. Because nutritional yeast, I don't know if you've ever had nutritional yeast, but it
Mm.
basically it's yeast flakes that taste kind of like Parmesan cheese, and it's super high nutrient. It's really healthy for you, and it tastes enough like cheese that when you blend it into basically what you're making of a vegan chez is like mashed potatoes, but because you put the nutritional yeast in there, it comes out tasting more like a nacho cheese. And I use that cheese sauce in a ton of stuff now.
I mean, you're working for what works for your daughter, but like, and that's
Oh, don't get me wrong. If she
like,
could eat cow dairy, I would be shredding cheddar all day long, man. There's no question about it.
you left. I want some cheese now. A
Yeah,
good ghost pepper cheese. That sounds delicious.
you're a spicy boy.
I am. But we're focusing a lot on the toddler and the pretty much the toddler side of it. But there are, a lot of dads that listen to this have preteens, teens, children, as you want to call them, the preteen.
Yeah.
Um, and everybody's like, man, like teenagers will eat you out of house and home. Like I will tell you, and my wife will probably rip me a new one for this. Like we have to tell our preteen to eat food. Like he's just so focused. And it's, I know it's different for every kid because our generation, not our generation, the our generation of children are so focused on their Xboxes and their PlayStations. Like maybe they forget to eat. Or like, kid, you can't do that. Like I studied a lot of nutrition, like because I wanted to go into nutrition. Like I wanted to be a nutritionist. So like I studied a lot into it and then decided that wasn't the career choice I was going to go with. Well, that's a nice cup there.
Oh, you like my this was a present from my sister-in-law. It's great. It's not to derail us, but this is the best Bluey mug I've ever had. It's lovely, and it's my water cup
I would drink from that all the time. Love that
all the
show.
time.
That is the
I my
greatest show ever.
my wife and daughter both have matching ones. It's great.
Nice.
You studied a lot of nutrition. Sorry to interrupt with my
No,
wonderful Bluey references.
And like we said before, like we're not doctors, but like I feel like I've studied enough that we know that overindulging on a single meal for anybody, especially a preteen who's growing, their body needs that nutrition throughout the day. Like you can't do that. So we have to tell them like you need to space out your carbs, or not your carbs, your calories. A good healthy breakfast. Let you know, for argument's sake, I hit my mic over here. For argument's sake, 750 here, 750 here, 750 here. I know the math is off, but
It's fine.
Or 600 here, 800 here, 800 here. So like you have to space it out. You can't be like, I'm gonna eat 100 here. I keep hitting my damn mic. 100 here, 200 here, 1200 here. And that is a struggle that we have been dealing with, and we are dealing with, because like I said, we don't stock all those processed foods in our household. um and and kids are stubborn. And that's the current fight, that fight, air quotes here, that we're having, because, well, what do we know as parents, right? Our preteens, our teens know more than us. And so if anybody has advice, like I'd love to know some, because like I'd be better off talking to the wall behind this monitor here than getting this kid to actually listen to us when it comes to proper nutrition.
Yeah, and it's really challenging too, right? I am nervous for that stage because I mean, transparently, I don't set a good example, because I don't space my calories out well. I worked in the service industry and the hospitality industry for a really long time, so I'm used to, I would, from the time that I was probably 16, 17 years old, when I started working in the service industry, I would wake up, I would have a huge breakfast, and then I would spend my day and I would have a huge dinner. And like that was I would eat at 6:30 in the morning and I would eat at 6 p.m. at night. And I didn't have anything in between that 12-hour span, except for maybe an energy drink and some horrible chips or a Slim Jim or something, like terrible snack food, right?
High quality.
So yeah, really, really awful, like bad trucker food. Like so I worry about that. And I mean, obviously now in my adult life, like I'm a little bit better at that, but frankly, like I still skip breakfast or skip lunch 2 or 3 days a week, and we talked about you mentioned kids wanting to snack all day and then not being hungry. I think that applies a lot to teenagers too. If you're sitting, you mentioned that they're lost in technology. If your kid's playing Xbox all day and eating, Doritos or whatever while he's doing it, yeah, he's probably not going to be hungry for dinner. In the same way that I work remotely, and some days I sit with a bag of chips next to me, and if by dinner time I recognize that bag of chips is gone, I'm probably not having dinner that night because I just ate a bag of chips throughout my work day.
And see, like I try not, like, for one, I'm not a snacker, and this is why I don't go grocery shopping, because I'm always like,
weigh half what I do.
Yeah, that's a little extreme. But because I'm like, man, that looks really good as a snack, and then I don't eat it. And so like I guess it's hard for my mind to grasp, because I'm not a snacker. So like for people to snack and then not eat their dinner or their meals, I'm like, no, like those meals are what's important. But I am guilty, and I feel kind of hypocritical, is I don't eat breakfast. 6.5 days average, I don't have breakfast. The one day I do have breakfast is when we go get donuts, because our youngest is like, or not, our youngest boy is like, let's get donuts. I'm like, all right, I guess we're getting donuts today. But like, and so like I'm telling my children, hey, you have to space out your calories. And I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have 3 cups of coffee and some fresh air.
Yeah.
And I feel bad, but like I've never been a breakfast person. Do I like going to breakfast? Sure. I'm not a breakfast person, but I also understand where my calories need to come in at. It's harder to explain that to a child. you know, child, up until the age of 18. But they're just children are just so hard-headed. I think I would prefer my kid to eat me at a house and home than have to tell them to eat food, because
Yeah, yeah.
then
Well, I'm sure somebody, one of the dads out here listening to this is probably shouting at you about the, $500 a week they spend feeding their 14-year-old and how lucky you are to have a kid who doesn't eat you out of house and home, right? I mean, the grass is always greener.
that is true. But like, it's, as a parent, you want your kid to be healthy.
Yeah. Well, in this, I mean, what we're talking about, right? You skipping breakfast and me eating a whole bag of Doritos as my lunch, like, I mentioned it in our last episode. I'm trying to raise a kid who's better than me, right? Like, I don't want my daughter to grow up to be the caliber of human that I am. Not that I'm bad, but like my goal is for her to be better than me and
Yeah.
to learn from my mistakes and improve. And so yeah, I want to teach her the right way to do things, even if that's not what I'm doing.
And see, and I appreciate you saying that, because like it does make me feel better, because like I have so much information in this big ass head of mine, like, and I want to make sure that you, my children, have this information that I have. But we have all been children. We never listen to our parents. We learn the hard way. We're all we're all hard headed. Um, but I don't want my children to struggle the same way. So like that does make me feel a little bit better, because it is aggravating. It's like I said, it's like talking to a wall. The wall will be more responsive.
Yeah. No, it's
Um,
tough, man. And I don't envy you. I know it's coming way too quickly,
a lot
but
sooner than you
I was
realize.
gonna say it's hard enough feeding an 18-month-old. I can't imagine what feeding a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or an 18-year-old is like, because woof. It's a
Yeah,
whole nother level of stubborn.
yeah, like it's, and I know one day. Hold on, check in something real quick. I know one day I'm gonna wish it was as easy as this. Like you said, a dad's gonna be like, "Oh man, these kids, like, lucky you," and I'm gonna look back in a couple years and be like, "Man, my grocery bill is only, I don't know, $180 a week," like, and then it's gonna go up to like $300 a week because of one child.
Yeah. No,
um, but
exactly.
but like you said, grass is always greener. But
Yeah, well, and it's okay to be struggling just because somebody has it worse, right? I mean, we're having this conversation about nutrition and the challenges that we're having of getting our children to eat the food that we have in abundance. There are countries all across the world where getting the bare amount of nutrition is challenging for people. uh, I can't imagine what that level of struggle feels like. That doesn't mean that it's selfish of me to be frustrated by the situation I'm having with my child, right? Um, and I think that's an important reminder for dads that, like, just because another family has it worse than you, or is having different challenges than you are, doesn't mean that your challenges are any less valid and that your struggle is any less
mhm.
real.
No, and that's a good point, because like we said in what our first episode is, we want to take this worldwide. Like, obviously we are speaking purely from the American standpoint. So like we only see it as, overabundance. We can go get whatever we want because things are cheap.
And frankly, I mean, not that either Derek or I are living a millionaire lifestyle, but
Mm,
the privileged American side of things, right? I mean, neither of us are, uh, both of us are in positions where we're not struggling with poverty or worrying about where our kid's next meal comes from. That's a privilege in and of itself.
yeah, that is. And this is not us bragging. I know
No, no, by no means.
you and I have both worked to get and make sure our families are set to that point. But like, I want to hear from a dad who isn't in our situation. Like, how did you make it work? Because I'm curious. Like, we can all use pointers from each other. Just because we think we've got it figured out doesn't mean it's the right way. Doesn't mean it's what works best. There's always a way. There's always room to improve. So, you know, this will be posted to YouTube eventually. And so throw some comments in
Every
there.
Friday. Don't give me an eventually. YouTube
Uh,
every Friday, podcast following Monday. Come on now.
eventually, one day. Throw those comments in there. Send us an email. Like we really do want to hear from actual dads. Or you know what? I don't even want to just segregate it to dads. Like moms will listen to this too. Parents will listen to this together. Like let us know what you have experienced, what works for you, what struggles you're going through, kind of thing. So we can all grow together. So we can all, it takes a village, is what they say, right?
Yeah, and please, I mean, like I mentioned, these videos post on YouTube every Friday. We release it as a podcast the following Monday for our podcast audience. If you're watching this video on YouTube, comment down below. Let us know, what worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what struggles are you having. Let that comment section become a community of its own, so that we can all learn together. If you're listening to this as a podcast, email us at proudofyoudads@gmail.com, or hit us up on our social media at Proud of You Dads on Instagram and Twitter. Direct message us, comment, email. We'll share that stuff on the show, and help that community grow, because I'm sure there are places in the world that are doing it better than we are. I'm sure there are places in the world that are having different struggles or harder struggles than we are. We want to hear all of it. We want to grow that community, worldwide.
Exactly. And like the comment section, we don't want it solely to be directed towards us. We pretty much want it to be almost forum style. Like somebody reads a comment, somebody has an answer for you. That's what we're looking for. Like we don't have the answers. We're not looking for the answers. We just want to connect the question to the answer.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Derek and I are just two, like I said at the beginning of the episode, we're just two dads trying to figure it out and make sure that our kids survive. Um, Parenting is making the best choice that you can in the moment, in the situation that you're in, and hoping that it works out well. And if somebody else has a better idea than the two of us, please listen to them. Find a better way, because we're all struggling. I think that's the one thing that connects dads across the board, right? No matter where you are, no matter what your situation is, whether you have one kid or five, whether you have all the income in the world or none at all, we're all struggling in different ways.
Mhm.
That's the thing that connects us as parents, is that parenting is hard. And we're proud of you for doing it. That's why we started this podcast, is because what you're doing isn't easy, but you're doing it, and it's awesome that you're doing it.
And then coming back to us week after week, looking for some knowledge, not even advice, just knowledge, and being able to get that and spread it to somebody else. Like, and if you share with one person, that means we've done what we were hoping to accomplish. That's simple.
So Derek, bringing us back to food, obviously you said that your preteen is a bit of a unique example. In your experience, when does from the weaning phase that I'm in now to the preteen phase that you're in with your oldest, right?
Mhm.
Um, when does the transition happen there of feeding my daughter's chore, right? And I don't mean that as a necessarily a negative thing, but she doesn't typically initiate that. I have to sit her down at the table and say, okay, it's time to eat, and then she's going to spit out half of the food that I give her. When does that go away?
So
For some of our listeners with young kids, and one of our hosts with young kids who are waiting for that phase to be over.
And I think it's a lot of it was we gave them that freedom. We mentioned that in the last episode, is that freedom, that independence. Like we gave them that utensil, we gave them that fork, we gave them, because we sit around a table, and that I think that's the biggest thing, is they sit and they watch us use a fork or a spoon, and then they try to do that. They're copying us. So my daughter, she's a little older than yours by just a couple months, a few months, and she has watched us. She has watched her brother, the brother right above her,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
The
use
middleest
utensil.
child.
The middleest child, yes. She has watched him, and of course, like kids want to learn things, and so watching them and being there for them. Like obviously, if you see that frustration and they're getting upset, like you help them out, but then like what we would do is we'd hold their hand with the utensil and we'd like stab a noodle. and then we would guide it to their mouth, and then eventually they learn, oh, this is how you do it. Because I remember the baby food stage. It was very aggravating when suddenly they're like, and food everywhere. And I couldn't wait to get out of there. I miss that stage now because they were so reliant on me. And it's, I mean, there's not a time like everything else. Every child is different, but it's teaching them and allowing them to learn, allowing them to make that mistake. And that's what worked for us. Like I said, I think the biggest thing is sitting around a table, not in front of the TV on the couch, has really been beneficial.
Yeah, that's actually something that we've adopted with Alana recently. Is she has a it's like an activity tower. It's basically a step stool with side rails on it, for OSHA compliance. That when we're cooking or when we're doing dishes or anything, she can stand and be kind of at our level and be present. But she still has some guard railings to keep her from falling. And she, we went from having snacks in bed and snacks in her room and snacks on the couch to now, if we are eating or drinking, that happens at the dining room table or it happens in her tower. And there's no like snacks are, I think, the one thing. Like I said, she lives on veggie straws and we have those everywhere. But
Uh,
even that is, we try to limit to, hey, oh, you want some veggie sticks? Let's go get into your tower. Let's go sit in your chair at the table. Um, and
I
it's helped dramatically to create that, that situational, oh, I'm at the table, I eat now.
and I think like if we didn't live on a multi-story house, and that sounds really bad, but like a multi-level house, like that would work for us too. But like my wife works from home. Her office is on the second story. So if the kids want a snack, like she can't stop what she's doing to go downstairs and put them in their chairs. So like
Yeah, of course.
I will say, like when it comes to the snacks, like we will allow the children to walk around their snacks, and they'll put them down. So they're not just sitting there eating in that chair. They'll put them down and they'll come back to them later.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and frankly, I think that that's healthy, as an adult too. Like the one of the benefits of adapting this, into our lives is, I used to sometimes eat dinner on the couch. I'd put on a TV show and watch dinner, or, my wife and I would put on a movie and we'd watch dinner, or we'd watch dinner, we'd watch a movie and have dinner together on the couch. By setting that boundary, like I still snack while I'm in my office while I'm working. I still snack on the couch when the baby's not around. um but when I sit down to have dinner, it is a family dinner. And
mhm.
call me old school, I really like shutting off the TV, putting our phones away and
Yep.
having that dinner time together. Because how many family dinners are we going to have until she moves out, right? Like it seems like a huge distance in the future from now, but it's going to be gone in a blink of an eye, just like the last 2 years have been.
Exactly. Like, and we do the same thing. Like, I mean, we will, like if it's pizza night, we'll sit on the couch and we'll put a movie on and have some pizza. Like I say, if we ever have ramen, like I'm sitting on the couch eating my ramen. Um,
You're bold,
but
man. I would never eat soup on my couch.
I am very careful, okay? No, but most of our meals are at the table. Like we have made it that point to sit around down, around the table as a family and disconnect ourselves from everything. Like, yes, we have our smartwatches, but we won't answer messages. We'll kind of look like, oh, making sure nothing important. Like, oh, what's that? What's coming through now? But
Well, and especially, I mean, you're not to dive too far into your personal life, but your job kind of, you you need to be aware of things after you leave the office, right? And so having that smartwatch on so that you can know if an emergency happens and you need to jump in, is important. But being able to just ignore that and have time with your family is also important.
yeah, and so that's one thing I highly recommend for every parent. And I think that helps the most when it comes to food training or just watching what your family intakes from toddler, for infant to toddler to child to preteen to teenager. um because not only is that you get to talk to your family, crazy, right, face-to-face conversation as we're sitting here over video.
Of course.
but but you also get to just like pick up on what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So highly recommend. I wouldn't change that for the world. Is it inconvenient sometimes when I'm going to sit there and find cars on Facebook Marketplace? Sure, but those cars will be there. Those whatever deals you're looking for on eBay or Amazon, like they will still be there. Sit down around the table with your family. It'll make a world of difference. Trust me.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up for today. Nutrition is such a challenging topic, as we mentioned at the beginning. Everybody has a different approach to it, and every kid is different. Even in the same family with the same parents, you'll have two kids and they'll have completely different eating habits. So give us your stories. Tell us what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. What's your favorite memory from your kids eating experience? What's your least favorite one that you hate and was your biggest struggle, and how did you
Yogurt.
overcome those struggles? Yogurt, is that what you
Yogurt
said
is
to
the
her?
worst.
Oh,
Like,
yogurt's the
oh
worst,
boy.
man. So yeah, I mean, let us know. We want your input. So once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, comment down below. If you're listening to this as a podcast on Monday, email us proudofyoudads at gmail.com. We want to hear your stories. And also, if you have any other topics or any other struggles that you're having, things that you want to hear us talk about, please let us know, because we're always looking for new things to talk about.
Or I don't want to cut you off here. Or
Oh, please.
if you want to join us for an episode, we would love to have dads be able to speak. So it's like, so it's not just us reading us, what was sent to us. Like, tell us your experience so we can see, so everybody else can see or hear the emotion in your voice. Like, we want dads on this podcast. Let us know. We can get something scheduled.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to build a community. This is as much a support group as it is an advice podcast. And we'd love to have you sit with us and share your experiences. So thanks for joining us. Until next week, we're proud of you.